The following program will make you want to grow things and experience new and wonderful dreams about your plants, garden, and garden design. Listener participation is always strongly advised. Good evening and welcome to Down the Garden Path with your hosts, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board by telephone, dial 905-725-1907. Toll free in North America, 1-866-905-7325. Send us an email right now. Our email address is instudio101@gmail.com. And now, right to your hosts of Down the Garden Path, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to another live episode. We're live and in person tonight.
Yes.
Welcome to Down the Garden Path, where each week we discuss down-to-earth tips and advice for your plants, gardens, and landscapes. As landscape designers and gardeners, we think it is important and possible to have great gardens that are low maintenance, and we want to help you make it happen. I'm Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and owner of Down to Earth Landscape Design for the past 11 years. It is currently a design-only business here east of the GTA. With me is my co-host Matthew Dressing. Welcome, Matthew.
Welcome, Joanne. Good evening, everyone. And I am Matthew Dressing, horticulturist and landscape designer and owner of Natural Affinity Designs. Natural Affinity is a landscape design and garden maintenance firm servicing Toronto and the eastern GTA. Joanne and I enjoy doing Down the Garden Path each week, bringing you interesting, relevant, and helpful topics to help you achieve a great garden. We learn right along with you from each other, from our research, and from the guests that join us here on the show. As always, we welcome your questions via social media, emails, or phone calls.
That's right, and we want to thank you once again for joining us down the garden path, and let you know if this is your first time or if this is the first time catching the beginning of the show, we'll let you know that you can always check out our past shows of Down the Garden Path on your favorite podcast app. This show will be released later this week, and so if you subscribe to our podcast, then you'll always be notified when we release a new show, and you can look back at all of our past shows, right?
Exactly. Tune in, like, share, leave us a comment. We always appreciate your feedback.
Yes, definitely. So,
well, tonight's show.
Yes.
We talked about it before, but we know it's been a heavy Japanese beetle season here in the GTA.
It has. And you had, a few weeks ago, you had a whole show on Japanese beetles.
We did.
So that is a prime example. If our listeners are having issues with the Japanese beetles and you missed that show, please look back on our website or on your podcast app for the past Japanese beetle show. Matt did a solo show.
Yeah.
That's right. But tonight, we're going to get even deeper. Ha, ha, ha.
Yes.
Sorry. Couldn't resist.
Well, as we know, because the Japanese beetles, they're laying eggs. And it's the time of season where they're going to hatch. And as we know, they become our white grubs in the lawn.
Right.
So here in Canada, there's only one thing we can really do as homeowners to really take care of those white grubs directly.
Right.
And that's nematodes. So we're going to talk about nematodes here on the show this evening.
That's right. And I hope our listeners, we know that the Japanese beetles lay eggs and they become grubs, but I'd love to hear from our listeners if you realize that those two garden pests were related. So, because I don't think everybody does
No,
realizes the connection.
You're right. Yeah,
You know?
I'm in the store, and that's
Yeah.
one of their. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that is really cool. And we will mention we were scheduled to have a guest on the show to talk about it. And unfortunately that has fallen through. But Matthew and I are still equipped, and Matthew can update us on what's happening in the garden center. And I know that's what's a lot of questions are happening about the nematodes. So we've got a lot of information here that we still can share with everyone, and we'd love to answer your questions too, right?
That's right. If you've had trouble with them, if you think that they don't work or why they don't work, we'd love to hear from you, and we're going to talk all about that and a few nematodes that maybe you didn't know you could use in the garden for other issues.
That's right.
We'll explore those as well.
Yeah, and for our Canadian listeners, we are not allowed to use any of the systemic chemicals to kill grubs. No longer in Canada.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some areas in the U.S. that's the case, or if there's homeowners that are, even though you're quote unquote allowed to, and you want to seek out an alternative, more of an environmentally friendly alternative, and learn more about nematodes, then this is the show for you as well.
Exactly. If you have any questions or you want to share what you're using or what you're using in the States or you found around Canada, don't forget, write us at instudio101@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Take pictures, send pictures.
Yes.
And we love interacting with you guys. So
Thanks
for joining us this Monday evening.
So what is so aside from Japanese beetles and nematodes, what's happening at the garden center?
That still is the big one.
Big one.
It is still the big one. Plants are slowing down. There's still great selections out there. We're starting to see some sales occur at our garden center, but also kind of industry-wide. A lot of places don't have places to return stock to. They grow at their own. They do have to clear it out, so they have room for fresh stuff for you. So we are starting to see some sales. Fall is happening, most certainly. Fall, you can see it in all the home decor stuff. I'm thinking like Michael's is the one that I like to go to often.
Oh, really? Is the fall stuff there?
Fall stuff's there. Christmas is out there.
Oh, don't.
I can't even say I got a text from my mom about some ribbon, because I'm like the bow maker in the family.
Yeah.
And there's some great Santa ribbon that I'm dying to go get tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So I'll be hitting there. But at the garden centers, we're starting to get our fall wreaths. The mums are appearing. Just be careful with the mums. It is still August.
Yes.
They are cool weather plants. They will blow the warmer they are.
Right. So unless you absolutely have to have them, try to hold off on getting the mums.
Yeah. If you know there's a color that whatever garden center you go to, they have a color that's short. Treat it as like a shade plant. Give it bright indirect light, but keep it cool to slow it down.
Yeah.
And always buy them when they're really, really tight in bud. That's the better way to buy them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So mums in fall, that's pretty much it. This is in the garden center industry. It tends to be kind of a transition period, and we start to slow down. We're waiting for fall to really kick in right at about Labor Day, and then we're going to move into Halloween and Christmas.
Yeah,
pretty quickly. That's our next May 2-4 weekend. Yeah, and it's pretty quick. So that's kind of what's happening there, but people are still Japanese beetles and Japanese beetle traps, and all those questions are still hot.
Yes, definitely. And what about watering, like any other,
people are still
so warm.
Yeah, still watering. They're still buying watering equipment. They're still coming in for fertilizers and things like that.
Right.
And it's kind of be careful what you're doing, but and how much. But they're still out there, and there's still lots to do. Summer, guys, we can still plant.
Yes,
in summer,
absolutely.
Right. But as a culture, we like to vacation and vanish for like weeks at a time from our home.
In August.
In August, right? Yeah. And that big tree you just planted before you went away needs the water. So. So definitely make sure you're there. Have someone to come over, or as we like to say, grab a tree gator.
That's right,
and
tree
that'll
gator.
only help for so long, but still.
Yes.
Yep, definitely it's something.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Lots of stuff to buy and exciting plants that are just coming into bloom.
Excellent.
How about your garden? Because I hear you're underway. You've started some more work.
Yeah, well, for a couple things are happening in my garden. So one of my big main garden, which I call my health strip garden, where I've kind of garden right to the curb, and I've took out a lot of lawn and created this big garden. It's really doing well. My Dawn redwood that I planted last fall got off to a really slow start, and it's still a little on the sparse side, but I think it's doing well. But I also have a small garden kind of up the entranceway like up my path to the left of my path if you're going up. And I have a tricolor beech, and I had some little quick fire hedge, but then I, a couple of interesting rocks, but then I really was struggling, few grade changes and things like that. I was just really struggling with what would go there. I had an old rose gold barberry that, ended up growing and eating anybody who came up the path and stuff. So I got that taken care of a few years ago. Anyway, so I did actually at your garden center, I found something called, and I'm not a cedar fan at all, and I'm certainly not a globe cedar fan, so I don't even want to know that these are related, but because it's a completely different leaf, like a different needle texture. Mr. Bowling Ball, they are related. I know you're going to double check that. Mr. Bowling Ball cedar. So they're going to stay 2x2, and which is nice because I didn't want the problem with the rose glow cedar, like rose glow barberry, which one of the many problems was that it just took over, and then you couldn't see the really cool, interesting rocks that I had. So these are going to stay quite nice. And I added some bee balm. Can't remember the variety, but it was a kind of a different, more of a deeper burgundy color, which I think with behind them is the little quick fires. So I'm just a teeny, like it's funny that sometimes it's a small space and you just can't, I just couldn't get it right. So I'm really happy that I got that done. And my more exciting news, we could talk the whole show about. Sorry, Gary, I know it's not all about me. My backyard. So we've been waiting for several years since we moved in. The previous owners had put in a pool and put in not so great patio with not properly installed flagstone. So we lived with that for 13 years now, and a deck that was, all splintery and things like that. So that's all being ripped out, and new coping around the pool and new patio. So I'm excited. So nothing too creative. Unfortunately, I can't be back there, but I'm just excited to get it all cleaned up, have proper retaining walls so the patio is not leaning against the fence. The drainage, making sure the slope is proper and not draining towards the house. Those little. So they're not fun things necessarily, but they're all really important things.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're important things. It's nice to see some change and freshen it up. For sure. Obviously, very long waited. So
yes, definitely. All the other host stuff, right? Like the roof and the furnace and all those other important things that had to get done first. So, so I'm excited. I'm excited to see it finish. Nice. And I've been patiently waiting, or kind of impatiently waiting for my contractor to get there. Hopefully he's not listening.
Yeah, really.
So that's what's happening at my place.
Very cool. Very cool. Mine's just kind of like the garden center, kind of in a transition.
Yes.
Just deadheading. I'm enjoying the nasturtiums that I'm eating.
Which I never did grow.
I told you I was going to bring you some too.
You did tell me that.
And I didn't. So that's my fault.
Okay. Well, truth be told, I did buy some and let them die in the driveway.
There you go.
So oops.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, maybe next year.
So I'm waiting for my potatoes to fatten up.
Yes, how's your potatoes? Okay.
They're still looking good, and everything's just kind of blooming, and I'm just
tomatoes.
Did
you grow tomatoes this year?
I didn't know. No.
Okay.
I did. I tried. I started one, and then it kind of failed, so I replaced it with something else.
Oh, okay.
But I guess my big show this year is Mycana Cleopatra. So it's a green leaf and a burgundy leaf, and it just kind of randomly marbles itself and gets big swaths and bright red flowers, and it's just growing like a weed, and it's spectacular. So
wonderful.
Those are my potatoes. So then nothing really to report. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, our veggies, we grew zucchinis for the first time.
Oh, and how did that go?
Oh my gosh. I had no idea. I have to admit that I thought it would be a vine like the cucumbers, and it turns into this shrub basically with amazingly beautiful leaves. Oh my goodness. So so that's been good. We need to start dropping off. Apparently this past week was give your neighbor a zucchini day, so we have to do that. And our cucumbers, so things are struggling. The peppers seem to be, I think, loving this heat. So peppers are all doing well. My tomato plant has got a lot of tomatoes. Nothing is even turning any shade of red. So I did some pruning of them actually to make some more light on them, hoping that would help. Mm-hmm. And so.
Very nice.
Yeah, very good. Oh, we've got a question.
Oh, we do, yes. Karen writes in, "Hi, Joanne and Matthew. What a coincidence. I was just going to go online to find out about nematodes," and she tuned in here at the same time. "I really do not understand much about them or what they do. Perfect topic for tonight. Thank you. Listening from Waterloo, Ontario." Hey, Karen, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it is timely. Absolutely.
My brother lives in Waterloo.
Oh, okay.
So, hi, Karen.
And Larry's just written. Oh my goodness.
Larry has written it.
Thank you.
So nice.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So glad that you're on the air this evening. Looking forward to the nematode discussion. Love your advice. Thanks. Thank you very much, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. So, what should we do? Let's dive right in.
Okay, so we want to make sure everybody heard at the beginning of the show how the Japanese beetles are invading our gardens and they're about to lay eggs, and those eggs then, which seems weird because of the size difference, but those eggs become the white grubs.
Right. And they've laid eggs.
Okay, they've already laid the eggs?
Right. Mom is laying 1 to 6 eggs every 24 to 36 hours. Right.
Okay.
And she can travel up to 1 kilometer to do it. So that's where you get the myth where you put a trap out and they're all coming in. Mom's moving all the time.
Okay.
And laying eggs. So mom's laid her eggs.
Okay.
They're in your lawn and they take 2 to 3 weeks to hatch. And
Okay.
They crack open and a little baby grub that'll sit in the whole size of your pinky fingernail.
Okay, so like a teeny tiny little caterpillar.
Really, really
Right.
small caterpillar. So right now they're not going to be doing a bunch of damage. You can dig and take a look right now.
But you might not even see them.
You may not even find them. They're so tiny they're going to be right in the soil surface.
Okay.
So there's not much damage out there now. If you do have damage that is looking like white grubs, we were saying before as well on the podcast that it's chinch bugs.
Oh, okay.
Or cinch bugs, whatever it is, because
Yeah.
they do identical damage.
Okay.
And they're like a little flea-sized beetle. They're very small with a little white diamond on their back, but they do the same thing. So if you see grub, quote unquote, grub damage now, it's probably chinch bug.
Oh, okay.
So take a look at that because they haven't done lots and lots of piles of damage
Right.
just yet.
Now, are the chinch, because what is the one that, I don't think it's chinch bug, that, when you open your screen door and the light on and they're the big, they look like giant mosquitoes. That's not them.
They're crane flies or leather
Okay.
jackets, and we actually have a nematode solution for those. We'll talk about as
okay,
well.
good. So we'll get to that. Okay.
Yes. I called them mosquito hawks because they look like just a big mosquito.
Yeah, they're just creepier, I think, because they're so big.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so if your lawn is being damaged now, do the rec animals kind of go looking for the chinch bug?
They don't. No,
No,
good question. Because they will for the white grub.
Right.
Right. They
But
will
not
for the
probably
white
not
grub.
now. Probably when they get nice and fat and juicy, right?
Right. So in the spring, you'll often wake up to spring and you'll find suddenly overnight there's holes all over your lawn.
Right.
And the skunks, raccoons, the crows, and the ravens will smell and search. They know that they're there and they'll
Okay.
dig them in.
All right.
Yeah. So at that point, I would just let them clean it out. Let them do their thing. They're pretty thorough. They can smell them through in the soil. They'll dig them all out. And you
Okay.
usually have cured your nematode problem, your grub
Really?
problem. They're
Okay.
usually
Now you
pretty
just have a
good.
lawn problem. But
Now you
yeah,
have a
that's a
lawn-
whole other episode, though.
That's
Matt.
a whole other episode. So check out past episodes.
That's right. On how to fix your lawn.
That's right.
right.
So nematodes
Yes.
in Canada, and write us in the States what you guys are using. We'd love to hear, and
Mhm.
we can tell our Canadian listeners, because I get a lot of people in the garden say, well, what else is there?
Right.
So let us know what's new and exciting in the States. We'd love to hear from you at instudio101@gmail.com. But we have nematodes. So nematodes are a parasitic microscopic worm.
Okay.
So they're basically like a big single cellular type thing. They have a bacteria in them, and there are many, many different types of nematodes. So the nematodes that you see or that we're applying are going to be species specific.
Okay.
They're going after the white fleshy grubs. They're going after little ant larvae, the little eggs and things like that. So you do have to touch the nematodes when you prep them, and that's why I preface this with species specific. If you go into the tropics down south, you can walk in areas with bare feet, and they will actually burrow into your foot. Yes, and you'll have a big, long, earthworm, imprint on the bottom of your foot. And I believe there's some species that stay small, and they, make a blister. And as they infect your foot, they eat the pus as your foot tries to heal them. So you can get human nematodes, but these ones won't hurt you.
Okay.
They will not hurt
Let's
you.
preface that.
Let's
Yes.
start with
I
that.
think I still used rubber gloves when I did it the first time.
Yeah.
Because you can't see them. You're just handling a sponge.
Yes.
Right? And you can't see them, which in a way is almost creepier.
Mhm.
That there's something there that you can't see that's going to then eat something that you can see.
Right.
I don't know. It's kind of creepy.
It is, and we
You
let
know.
our imagination go wild,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So when we're doing it, it's really creepy because it's like I'm touching this thing and what
Yes.
it does to the grubs, and we'll tell you about that.
Yeah.
But then it also kind of plays on the other side, I feel, and I think that's where a lot of the anger comes from. Well, I couldn't see it to begin with, and I put it down, and the great grubs are still there.
Right.
And
Okay.
it's like, okay, but
Yes, yeah, because there is a trick to doing it, and
There
it
is.
isn't a once and done. Like that is the challenge with something that's more quote unquote environmentally friendly. It's not like a chemical where you've got almost guaranteed success, right?
right.
So that's why we felt like the show was good. It's timely, and we're always trying to help, right, and help everybody improve. So give you some tips and tricks.
Yeah.
I love the tea bag trick. I found that really helped me
Yeah.
when I did it. So that's what we're here for. So we want your questions and your concerns or your horror stories, if you have some horror stories, regarding your experience. So so Mike has written in and he says, nematodes, yay. I had a ton of grubs last year. Help. Excellent. So we're happy to help.
We're here for you, Mike.
Yes. So, a couple of the key things. So, for your typical nematodes that are for the white grubs, right? We will talk about some of the other nematodes that are available.
Right.
But I would say probably the biggest key, one is timing.
Right. Yes.
And two is kind of prepping the lawn,
yes.
right?
Agreed.
Yes. Okay. So, why don't you go over what's our time frame?
Yeah. So timing is, like we said, there's chinch bugs out now. The grubs are coming out. So we're going to apply them anytime mid-August
Okay.
to the end of October. As it gets cold, the grubs are going to go further down in the soil
Right.
and vanish for the winter, and they will come back.
Yeah. So after Thanksgiving, don't you think? Like
Yeah,
kind
that's
of,
usually-
that's, I think when I did it Thanksgiving weekend and it was kind of like the last.
You're right on the
You
end
never
of it.
know though. Like I know it could warm up in after Thanksgiving, but you know, it's kind of I think it's good to have that deadline in your head.
Yeah, 'cause
Right?
once it starts to cool down, even if it does warm up, it's kind of like the land and water, right? It takes a little longer to warm up kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will go down and they will stay down.
Okay.
So that's the time frame we can do it now.
Okay.
But the other time frame within the time frame is doing it in the evening.
Ah.
Right.
'Kay.
So as we say, with the nematodes you're going to find them in a sponge usually.
Mm-hmm.
In the fridge. They're the better ones. You can find them in the globes, but make sure they're really, really fresh.
Okay. There were our expiration dates on them, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But the ones that aren't kept in the fridge, they tend to speed through their life cycle, much like a mum, right? The cooler, the warmer they are, the faster they go.
Right.
Right. So use the ones that are in the fridge, and we're going to do it at night because we're going to mix them with water,
Okay.
and we're going to apply it onto the lawn. And when you apply them, they're sitting in the water droplets that are still on the lawn. But if you do it in the middle of the day or in the morning, you're blasting out that water across your lawn, and the sun and the wind are evaporating and killing these nematodes.
Ah.
They're wiping them out
Okay.
as we apply them. So nighttime, we're going to get enough down. So anywhere like dusk, basically.
Okay.
At this time of year, it's probably still like 7:38
Yeah.
and moving forward.
Okay. Now, shouldn't you also before you water the grubs in, like not watering them in a bone dry lawn, right?
Right.
Isn't the secret to also have the lawn already fairly prepped of nice and wet?
Yeah, you got
Yes.
it. So you're saying, so there's a timing and then there's a preparation.
Right.
So the
Right.
prepping, these guys are swimmers. They
Okay.
use water to move around through the soil. Usually when you buy the nematodes, there's 2 or 3 different species. And some will stay right at the surface.
Okay.
Some will go a few inches further down, and then some of them will go like 3 to 4 inches down, and some will go anywhere from 3 to 6 inches down.
Right.
But they all travel by water.
Ah.
So like you were saying, for the preparation, we always recommend watering your lawn for 30 to 40 minutes ahead of time.
Okay.
You want to get it nice and moist, nice and wet. Then you're going to mix the nematodes and apply them.
Okay.
And then you're going to water your lawn again. Because remember, the water, now we've applied the nematodes, and we'll talk about that in great detail in just a second. But as you apply the nematodes, the water that now is left on the soil, on the surface, on the grass, you can see glistening. That all contains nematodes.
Okay.
So we need to push them into the soil.
Okay.
Yes. So.
All right. So, and the sponge thing I think throws people off too. So the
Right.
method actually, so now you've waited until after dinner.
Yes.
You've made sure while you were having dinner you were watering your lawn, right? Or if you have an irrigation system, run the irrigation system, reset it so it runs at dinner time. and or run a sprinkler or something like that, right?
Yeah, do it manually.
And
somehow.
so then you need a clean bucket, I would say, right? Like not a
Correct.
bucket that Javex was just in or your floor cleaner was just in. So really starting with a clean bucket of water. And I can't remember if it had to be warm or cold or if that mattered. I don't think it mattered, did it?
It doesn't
It's like
usually.
hose water.
Yeah, because
Okay.
usually tap water is 23 degrees Celsius. So
Okay.
that's plenty warm. It feels cold to us because we're 36 degrees.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You get science. And so then it doesn't matter how much water we put in the bucket, right? Or is there, okay.
Right. So when you get the sponges, you'll
Yes.
usually get 2 nowadays. There'll be
Right.
2 sponges in there. And each will do, you're going to apply each sponge into 2 liters of water. So ultimately for one package, it's going to have 2 sponges.
Okay.
And you need 4 liters of water.
Okay.
And this 4 liters is going to be diluted again into a hose end sprayer
Right.
that'll ultimately cover 3,000 square feet.
Okay, so if your yard isn't that big, so you want to use one sponge
Correct.
with 2 liters of water. So put 2 liters of water in the bucket,
Right.
put the sponge in the bucket.
Right.
And my little trick is
Yeah.
also to put a tea bag, which will not harm the nematode, but you put the tea bag in the bucket and just let that water kind of brown up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And then that helps you when you then put the water in. So then you're going to scoop that water into the hose end sprayer, right?
Yep.
Attach it to the hose. So then you'll know, it helps you know when you're out of product, right?
Yeah.
Or when you need to scoop more in.
Right. Because the applicators are usually opaque. It's not like a crystal clear
Right.
see-through plastic. So
Right.
that tint just kind of lets you watch the water level either dissolve if you have a reloading one with water.
Right.
Or most of the nematodes one is specific for nematodes. It'll drain
Yeah.
and then you refill. Yes. So
Right.
that's an excellent tip.
Yeah, so that is just kind of an easy thing. Usually everybody's got a tea bag at home or a teaspoon of instant coffee or something like that. That just helps you know, because otherwise you're watering and you're not sure like what's happening, right? So
Yeah.
that's just been my experience. I found that helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're
And-
watering at night. Remember.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, you're also watering at night, so it just helps you. And so so then when that is gone, it's no longer brown, right? So then it's clear water, because doesn't the hose water kind of recirculate in there?
And it depends on which one you have. Yeah. Because
Right.
some of them
Okay.
do. And
Some
then,
don't. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And we've spoken to about natural insect control in the past. Their ones just kind of drain.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So it depends on which ones you've got.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, you're using a clean. So I have one that I only use my nematodes in. So it's not the one you put the
Right.
fertilizer in. It's not the one you put the lime sulfur in, whatever.
For your dormant spray.
For a
kit.
dormant spray in the spring, So this is for nematodes. And so then you are using that. And it takes a long time to kind of spray it out. Like you are really, like I remember thinking, oh my God,
Yeah.
you
It can take 30 to 40 minutes
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah,
Yep.
so you be prepared. Find a podcast. That's a good time to listen to one of our past podcasts while you're out there, because I can remember, thinking, wow, this is really taking a while, but that's good. And so you will then scoop. So if you have the kind that drains, or even if you have the one that just goes clear now and the tea is gone,
Mhm.
then you dump that water out and then scoop up more from your bucket and then water and keep going.
Right. Right.
Excellent. And then after you have done all of the nematodes, then you still need to water more, right?
Right.
Even though it's evening.
Right. Even though it's evening, that water that you can still see glistening
Right.
in the dusk, that has nematodes in it. So we want
Okay.
to push them all down.
Okay.
That package has usually 10 million nematodes in it.
Okay.
So we need to get them down in there good.
All right.
Yeah.
So one other tip, especially if you do have a small yard and you only need the one sponge for, let's say, your front and your back, you only need the one sponge, then offer your second sponge to your neighbor.
Yeah.
Because I think that is one reason I think a lot of people say that it didn't work, or it maybe worked a little bit, but it didn't work 100%, is that especially if you're sharing the lawn with your neighbor,
Yeah.
but even if it's just across the driveway, that type of thing, they do travel. Those bugs, the Japanese beetles, travel, like you said, 1 kilometer, did you say?
Yeah. And we'll move up to
Yeah.
a kilometer. Yeah.
So it really helps if you can, get your neighbors on board. So share this podcast with them, share the little pamphlet with them. I know when I did it 2 years ago, I couldn't convince my next door neighbor, but the person he shares the lawn with, he was convinced. So then he did his. And then last year, so we all did it. And then we've talked about it again, because I think it really is a community to try and get the Japanese beetles and the white grubs under control. It definitely, especially since if you're in a neighborhood where everybody's like small yards all close together, you kind of have to, there's no way to cross a line to keep the nematodes on this side of the line, right? So it's better if there's a bit of an overlap. So that's something to consider.
For sure. And if you have no one to share with,
yes,
you can keep the other sponge, but you do want to keep it in the fridge.
Right.
And as long as the Japanese beetles are up, if you've even applied one sponge now, they're doing their thing. The beetles are still up and mom's still laying eggs.
Okay.
So you can keep the sponge for 2 to 3 weeks later, as long as within that expiry date, and apply them again, because you'll have a whole second brood to do it. So you can do it again.
Okay, so that could be a secret to success too,
that
right?
That could also be a way.
Yeah. So if we did it mid-August, you can do it again. You said like not mid-September, like not a month, but I guess reading the best before date.
Right.
As long as you're within the best before date.
Right. And we're going to sell nematodes from NIC, and we're going to get in the packages, and their best before date's going to be like November 17th.
Right.
So they'll be quite a thing.
Okay.
But as long as there are the grubs that are there, you can put your nematodes in.
Okay.
So hopefully that first bout, like Joanne said, share it, because the first ones are going to spread out. They're going to multiply. They're going to do their thing. You're going to put so many in, and so many are going to come out, because that's how the grubs work, or the nematodes work. I always flip those two words. The nematodes are going to... Sorry, go ahead.
No. So if our listeners are questioning, so the nematodes are going down into the ground, like you said, through water,
yes.
And they're basically eating... Are they eating the grubs? Are they just killing the grubs?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, so
well, obviously.
But how does that work? What does that look like, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you've watered...
Do we care? I don't know. But go ahead.
Oh, here we go.
You're the science.
I'm waiting for this.
Yeah, you're waiting for this part.
They're going to water around. They're going to swim around. Some of them are going to just kind of hang out and wait for grubs to appear.
Okay.
But they're going to go into the white grub on their sides, and they're sphericals. They're breathing holes. And basically they release, as I said earlier, they have a bacteria in them.
Okay.
They're going to release the bacteria, and the bacteria is going to liquefy the inside of the white grub.
Okay. So everybody excited about that?
Yes.
All right.
I hope no one's eating
paying
dinner
attention, Gary?
The bacteria is going to do its thing, and then the nematodes are going to feast on that slurry.
Oh, okay.
And the bacteria is going to divide.
Slurry.
And they're going to basically divide and eat, and they're going to ingest the new bacteria.
So the more do they multiply because the more grubs they eat, then there's more nematodes?
Right. So
really? Oh, okay.
So 100 nematodes go in this big, fat, juicy white grub.
Okay.
1,000 are going to come out.
Ooh,
They're
okay.
going to multiply and break. So that first sponge may be enough, because you put, say, down 5 million.
Mm-hmm.
They all go in. And 50 million come out.
Right.
And they keep spreading and hunting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting.
Right.
Okay. Now, we've watered before, we've watered them in, and we've watered after.
Right.
What about the next day?
Yeah, we want to keep that soil, that upper 2 to 3 inches, moist pretty much for at least a week.
Okay.
So anywhere from a good 4 to 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to let them dry out, but they will make the kill fairly quickly. So you don't need to turn your backyard into a swamp or your front yard just to keep the nematodes going.
Okay.
The other thing is, we talked about in lawn care in the past, is keeping that lawn long, right?
Right.
So if it is long, that moisture we've just put down with the nematodes was actually going to last a little longer, because it's going to be protected from the heat and the wind and the sun that's blasting the soil level.
Okay.
And that'll keep your nematodes going.
Okay. All right. So our window is for like this time, anytime next week, right? Especially if they're in stock, because that tends to be the kicker, right? Like if we could go to, do you have them in stock right now?
I did, and we sold out over the weekend.
Okay.
And I'm waiting for more. So
okay.
Yeah.
So just make sure you check the best before date. We both do really suggest you get the fridge version. There are shelf stable ones, but check the date. They have made them so that they, are more stable, but I just think, if it wasn't broke, why fix it? Go with the fridge one. And especially if you're going to do it pretty quickly. right? And if you're not, you can keep it they're in bags. Like there's no problem, no worry about putting them in your own fridge while you wait until a good day to do it.
Yeah, that sounds gross, but they're double bagged. There's no way
they're coming out.
Ever gonna get out unless you touch them and put them somewhere.
Now, temperature, like what if it's still quite warm? Does that matter?
In the soil, you mean?
Yeah, well, like the air. Or like if it's, we get another little hot spell next week or the end of this week, right?
Yeah.
Does that matter, or is it just more the water that they need?
Yeah, if you've got your lawns really short, it's kind of dormant, that soil is going to be very warm. So that's going to dry them out fairly quickly.
Okay.
And that might burn a few of them or a number of them out. So yeah, keeping it moist and cutting it high is going to be your best thing. Or if
waiting for it to cool, let them wait a few days. Right?
Because as long as the soil's moist and they don't dry out completely solid, then they should be still viable and still be in there and active and doing their things.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as there's some nice food there, then they're good.
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent. We got another question or a comment.
Yeah, Monica writes in, wow, excellent explanation. Well, thank you, Monica. And she says, thank you as well. You make it so easy to understand nematodes. What great advice. Thank you. Well, thanks, Monica.
Yes, and Monica, I've been listening to this and reading about this and selling these and talking about them, but it really, and it almost like you get it a bit more when you actually do it, when you actually put it on too. But yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just weird because you can't see it working. You can't smell it like a chemical. You can't. So it's almost like you're trusting that the sponge, but the instructions are there in the packages. They're very self-explanatory. Very helpful. You can put on a little latex glove if you don't want to squeeze the sponge with your bare hands, like me. So I think that's exciting. And I think it's cool that we've come up with a solution to a problem that is more, there's no chemical, there's no harm to us. The previous grub solutions were very chemical and very harsh to the environment, to us. So again, I'd love to hear from some of our U.S. listeners on what you're using and how you feel about it, or if you see your community turning, it takes a little while to turn a community over to something like this, but I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, for sure. That's why for our Canadian listeners that they were banned, right?
Right.
You have this chemical you just put on the ground, it kills them all, but then we all do it as a preventative. So we do it again, and there's nothing there. So all that goes into the environment.
Right.
And then it's spring, and let's do it again.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's something that we don't, even with Roundup, Roundup is still available here, and even though it's behind glass and you have to ask for permission. And I've been always kind of on the fence, use it if you have to use it. But more and more, I'm realizing that, the runoff that goes into our water, but more importantly, like the dogs that walk on it and the paws that come in the house. So we're thinking it's like out there, or our neighbors are using it out there, or it's outside and it's not going to impact my life inside. But I think we're walking, on grass that has it, and then we're, coming in, even your front mat, you're walking and wiping your feet, or your animals are touching it and things like that. So I'm really starting to think, it's really not worth it, so, and I realize that there's some situations where you need to use it, for sure. But, I'm less likely to want to use it between my patio stones or between my interlocking brick or that kind of thing.
There are other viable, just as effective solutions that
I don't know that they're just as effective right now, but they're,
maybe. There's some promising things. I like Path Clear. Scott's Path Clear does well. It's more of a 62% hort vinegar that I've done that pretty well on before. Yeah. Okay. So it's more of a foliage burner. It's not like Roundup where it's systemic.
Right.
But it'll wipe them out pretty quickly too.
Oh, okay. All right. Maybe I should look for that.
Yeah, take a look at that.
And
Yeah, I got a lot of people with the weeds, especially in the garden centers. They have that Path Clear, that patio thing.
Yes.
And they kill all the weeds, and they're like, well, it's already back. Well, you've just knocked out the competition.
Right.
There's all those weed seeds that are blowing into the cracks,
yes.
Right, that one plant is trapping and stopping. So.
Yeah, definitely. Do you talk to them about the polymeric sand and stuff like that?
Yeah, and a lot of people are kind of on the fence about that too, so I think we'll have to... look at that one. But they say it goes too moldy, or the ants can chew through it, and they still get weeds in it. So it's weird because I've never had that experience with. Yeah. Have you ever with the polymeric?
No, I mean, I think it depends on the base, and it depends on how much space, right? And you do have to, especially if you had a new patio, you have to reapply the polymeric sand, and it is a pain, but what can you do?
Yes.
But I disagree I think the ants, I think that's when it's not applied properly.
Yeah, or the gap is way too big. Or
Yes.
there's another factor that's causing it not to do what it's supposed to do.
For sure.
Yeah.
So again, if you're just joining us, we are talking nematodes here on Down the Garden Path. And they are being we'll recap that the Japanese beetles that are ravaging our gardens and yards are laying eggs in a fury, and those will become white grubs. And so that's what we're talking about to everybody. But aside from the Japanese beetles and those nematodes, there has been advancements in some of our other pests, right? Where they've come up with nematodes that can also kill them.
Yes.
How's that? Good intro?
That's a great intro.
Segue. Good segue.
There's a lot of different problems. One of the big problems that we get in the garden center is fungus gnats.
Okay.
So if you're not familiar with the fungus gnats, they're those very small, black to almost clear flies. They usually are around rotting organic matter or molds, mildews, algae. We often see them in our houseplants in the winter.
But not fruit flies.
They're not fruit flies.
Do we have nematodes for fruit flies? That's what I'd love. Oh my gosh, somebody needs to work on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're not fruit flies, but yes, they tend to be the little gnats that sometimes if you keep your house plants outside and bring them inside, or just from the dryness, or if you bought a new plant, those new plants on sale at the store, come home with gnats.
Yeah. And they're drawn to those spaces that are a little bit overwatered and things are starting to break down.
Right.
Yeah, so they're those little black flies. And fruit flies is exactly what people describe them as. They're little fruit flies, and they're in my window, and they're all over my plants.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have nematodes for those. And
excellent. So I've always used the sticky traps. But do you think, so the nematodes, is it similar? Like now you're putting it in your household watering can and watering the soil and watering, obviously, all your plants.
Right.
Okay.
You can water all your plants. The nematodes, especially from an IC, when you do open them for the fungus gnats, they actually do come with sticky cards.
Oh, okay.
So if they do miss anything, or there's also still adults flying around the house, because the adults live for a few days, a number of days.
Okay.
They will fly in and they'll basically get drawn to the sticky traps as they go to lay their eggs.
Okay.
And you're going to do the nematodes twice. So you're going to mix them up according to the instructions, much like the white grub nematodes. It's just on a smaller scale.
I was just going to say probably not this volume of water.
No. And you basically go around and you water your house plants, and they go and they kill the larvae.
Okay.
That are about 5 millimeters long. They crawl around. They're little white clear things. So if you've pulled out a plant and you see white, little creamy white to clear with little black heads crawling around inside the soil, those are your fungus gnats larvae. And then they'll pupate, and then they become the adult. So they eat the roots and the root hairs, and then the nematodes burrow into them and do their thing there as well.
Okay.
But the adults, you can get multiple generations going on all at once. So you usually use the sticky traps in conjunction with the nematodes. And I see nematodes even, they come with a pack of sticky traps just to stick around.
Right, to help with that. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Because their life cycle is a couple of times, or you can have multiple generations, you do want to apply the nematodes once, and then you're going to do it again 2 weeks later.
Okay.
Because there will be adults that you don't see that have laid again another eggs. That maybe the nematodes didn't get them all, or they moved to another plant. So you're going to just redo everything one more time.
Okay.
And that'll usually get rid of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, is it something you should do like preemptively, let's say? Like you bought a new house plant from a box store, from a nursery or something, just to put it in just in case, or just wait till you see them?
Yeah, I usually wait till you see them. If the plants aren't overwatered or stressed or wasn't very damp where you got them, or maybe you even bought them out in a greenhouse where there were weeds and moisture under the benches, you can sometimes have them come up from underneath that shady cool spot.
Okay.
Where they're probably just happy to be there, but they've come up and they've found some plants.
Okay.
And they're doing things like that. So just take a look. Usually if you unpot your plant and take a good look at the roots, you'll usually see that it's extra moist or it's fairly moist.
Right.
And you can usually spot one or two of those guys going.
Okay.
And check if your plants, if they're moist but they're kind of failing, maybe it's overwater, but maybe you have some fungus gnats as well, because these guys are eating their roots, and the adults are eating the tissue of the plants and the stalks and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, that is a little plant, like gardener's secret to before you buy the house plant, especially for the smaller plants. It's hard to do with their big plants, but is to kind of slip them out of the pot and take a peek, right, and just see the condition of them.
Even like in the perennials, right, flipping them over and seeing how many roots are coming out the bottom.
Yes,
they should not be doing that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So those are some tricks. And we were speaking earlier about the what I call mosquitoes on steroids. But you said those are they look like a mosquito, but they're giant, and they tend to come out in the fall and tend to be really drawn to light, right? So you can't open your if you open your screen door or your house door with the house light on, then these fly in, or I find that then they're on the inside trying to get out to that light on the outside, So, but those are actually leather jackets, which just seems weird to me.
Yeah,
that's not what I would call them.
Yeah,
but okay.
Yeah,
I don't see a leather or a jacket. Yeah, but there's a nematode for them as well.
Right. Yeah. So they're leather jackets or crane flies. They're the long, slender. Like I think they look like little dandelion legs. Like
flying dandelion. Yep, that's another analogy. Yep.
Yeah. So they feed on the roots of grass, causing yellow patches and thinning, much like the grubs do.
Right. But those other nematodes won't touch these guys. So you have to have a specific.
Right. There is usually a little bit of crossover, but there is more of it's the species of nematodes that will go after that group. But yeah, the female cranefly can lay up to 300 eggs. So what you want to do if you see those, or if you have an issue with those, once you start to see them, that's the time to lay those nematodes down.
Oh, okay.
So in the autumn, right after you see the flight of the adults, late September to October is usually when the larvae are young enough and easy to control.
Okay.
And you're going to do it then. You can do it again in the spring if you see the little larva, but a higher concentration, you need more nematodes, because as this larva goes through its life cycle, it gets really thick and armored. That flesh gets really strong.
Okay.
And you need more nematodes to attack, to actually break down and get in there.
Okay.
So the best time is now, or coming up till now, in about another month.
Okay.
Or once you start to see them fly.
Mm-hmm.
But not again in the spring unless you really need to. These guys usually cover about 1,000 square feet. But 500 if you're going to do them in the spring, because you need more of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's they don't bite, and they don't so it's more kind of like a little light nuisance, I find, until they come out with like a nematode variety pack, right? Buy one package and get 3 types of nematodes. Marketing idea. Hello.
Yeah. Well, and you say that because NIC has told us that the one for white grub will usually, very minorly, they won't do it like exclusively like the leather jacket, but if there are a few there, or sod webworms, which is another nematode we have.
Oh, okay.
They will do a little bit of damage to that population, but it's not the best thing to control that whole population.
Oh, okay.
So, kind of, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we've got another question.
Patty is writing in. Hey, listening to your show from Omaha, Nebraska.
Oh, welcome,
awesome.
Patty.
Welcome. Even though pesticides are still legal here for grubs, some folks are going the route of nematodes. Our pesticides are not like they were in the 60s and 70s, being very potent and deadly to fish, etc. Sorry, I misread that for a second. But now they are more to save the environment, but do the job to kill grubs, their eggs, etc. And love your radio show.
Oh, thank you, Patty. Well, that's good to know. That it's spreading, right?
Yes, it is. And I have to admit that even like my guests that come into my garden center, they have this image of the States with just their shelves are loaded with the deadliest of chemicals that wipe out everything and anything like instantly. And that's what they want. And then you get into our more natural or more natural based solutions, and they do work differently. They work, but they work slower or more they do a different thing, but they still get to that end result. So sometimes there's a little more time involved, and it's not that instant that we kind of grew up with anymore. Right,
yeah. for sure. But like Patty, you make a really good point that back when the chemicals were still just available, they were a certain level, and now we've just made them stronger and stronger, and people are relying on them, much like we do for our body on Advil and Tylenols, right? Like we just keep taking it and keep putting it on, and that's not good. So if we were better at maybe controlling it, and that's why here in Ontario and Canada, they've really come down on a lot of the herbicide bans, and it's been a challenge. It's been over 10 years now, and it's taken everybody, time to get used to it. But I think in the long run, it's a good thing. And I think it's great that we've got some others. Like, it's one thing to take it away and not have a solution, but we've got some alternatives. So I think it's great that the nematodes are succeeding at being a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Although it does, we really hope our show helps you, because it is a bit of a learning curve, and it's not as easy as treating with a chemical.
Right. There's a little bit more work involved, and it's more of a balancing than just a wiping everything out kind of thing.
That's right. But it's cool to know that you don't have to do it for 5 days straight, or, all day long, or 3 times in one day, that type of thing. So really, it's not so bad.
No, it kind of has that misconception that
Yes.
it's organic, so it's got to work. I got to do it all the time and blah, blah, blah. No, that's not true either.
Yeah. Excellent. So what else? Do we have any other? Well, you mentioned the sod wedworm.
Yeah.
So our poor sod.
Right, it is. Sod webworms. Their adults are a moth, but they do have a worm, a larva that during early spring the larvae feed on the upper roots of the system and the blades of the grass, and they build little silken webs and things in the sunny areas where they can feed overnight, and they're usually there for about 3 to 4 weeks. In early May, they'll pupate. So this isn't going to be one we apply a little earlier than our white grub one. And then they pupate underground in little silks of cocoons and bits of plants and stuff. And after about 2 weeks or so, they become the moth in late May, early June. And they can flutter around until about October.
Oh, okay.
So, and people will say they'll go out at night and there'll be some like kind of silkiness on their lawn. And there's these little worms that are kind of like poking up their heads and like.
Really?
Yeah, they're like almost like, I guess I was out there. I know I can see them, and they were kind of like crawling around.
When you say silky, like spider web-ish?
Yeah, almost like just a very light like webbish where they've kind of moved like little strands kind of around, and then they're kind of
people are paying way too much attention to their grass. But
okay. And they're kind of like going up and like breaching the grass surface and crawling around. They described it to like dolphins, like
oh my gosh,
and you can kind of see them
totally
up
creeping me out
and doing things.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, whoa, okay, cool. So that's what that is, and we'll have sod webworms for that as well. So usually you're being applied in early April to early May to control the first generation, and that's before any damage is really observed. But another one can be done early July for the next generation. The adults are going to do their thing.
All right.
So.
And lastly, I think the birch leaf miner. Because our birch trees were really getting hit by that was one tree that everybody knew of, that it was you needed a chemical to treat it, right? Which was the birch borer. And that was, those trees really took a hit when we could no longer kind of paint our trees, and the borer, starts at the top of your birch tree and kind of eats down and kills it. So I think they've raised and hybridized some more resistant birch trees. I know the ones I've been planting, the river birch, are much more resistant to the birch borer.
Yeah, Dakota pinnacle is a nice.
Okay, is that a good one?
Nice one, yeah. About 25 to 30 feet tall. And 15 to 20 feet wide. It's a nice columnar.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good. But the other thing was the birch trees tended to have something called a leaf miner as well. So now we've got nematodes for them.
Yeah. So leaf miners, you'll see usually like the elm leaf miner is one of the ones that'll go after them. And they basically burrow a little hole into the skin of the leaf, and then they eat the leaf tissue in amongst the cells. So some leaf miners
don't really kill the tree, but it's kind of like what's the word?
It's unsightly.
Aesthetic.
It's very
aesthetic.
Cosmetic and aesthetically unpleasing. Yeah, and sometimes you'll get leaf miners that'll leave the little line, and then sometimes you'll get little bubbles like on the birch, right? You'll get little sections where they're all inserted in there.
Oh,
and they eat like a little bubble in there. So they leave their mines in about mid-July, drop to the ground, and they spin cocoons and they pupate. And there's only one generation a year of those guys.
Okay. And now the nematodes, the same idea.
Yeah, so you're going to do them, but you're going to do them in the ground on the base of the birch tree. So it's not something, because nematodes are soil creatures. So basically once, where did I have my note here? Here we go. Yeah, so, now I'm totally lost.
That's okay. So that they
I've
also
never done this one, so this one
we've
is a
never
new
done
one
this
to
one,
me.
but this is good. So that you also keep it in the fridge for a maximum of up to 8 weeks. Don't freeze them.
Yeah.
Water below tree 1 foot beyond the tree drip line.
Right.
Once birch leaf miner guard is applied, a light watering daily for up to 3 to 4 days is required. As like we mentioned, nematodes use the water channels to travel to find their prey. And soil temperature must be about 10 degrees for nematodes to be active and able to find leaf miner larvae. Do not apply in bright sunlight. And again, a cloudy day or late afternoon is the best time. And they should not be mixed with other fertilizers or other pesticides. And I'm guessing too other nematodes. Like it's not the day to kind of put all 3 sponges in your bucket, right? Although hopefully they'll come up with a variety pack of some kind. But yes, so very much the same. And putting it in 1 liter of water and wringing out the sponge 5 to 7 times. And So that sounds like it's very similar. It can be also applied with the hose end sprayer. So if you do have birch trees and you do notice that damage, or if you've just installed, birch trees or you bought a house, sometimes people move into a house and they're like, I bought it for these beautiful birch trees and then look what's happening. What's happening? What did I do? So this is something that not everybody knows about. And it's great that we now have something we can try to control it.
Yes, exactly. And so so you're going to do that basically, vacate their mines in the middle of July and drop to the ground, or they spin their cocoons and they pupate. So we can do it again in that early May kind of time when they're pupating and before they come out. And,
okay.
The females will lay eggs and do their things, and then they'll fall out.
Okay.
So that's what I was kind of looking for too.
Oh, okay. Looking for the date.
More for the date. Like
yes. So it's not So it's not the time of year to do that.
Right.
But it's good. Like we've given you some information. It's definitely the Japanese beetle, white grub time to do it. So time to get out to your local garden center or big box store. Just make sure you check on check that they're in the fridge and check on the best before date.
You got it.
So we hope you enjoyed this episode and we gave you lots and lots of information.
Yes.
Right?
So don't forget to look it up when we post it.
That's right.
Rewind and re-listen.
And what are we talking about next week?
Next week, I believe we have...
our fellow compatriot on the show.
You got it.
Stephen Biggs, Gary, is going to be on the show. He's going to be joining us to talk about his new book.
Excellent.
And we actually will have a book giveaway as well.
Ooh, so you'll have to tune in and you'll have to send Steve a question, I'm sure.
Yes.
Ask him about the new book. Definitely. I forget the title of the book right away.
I know, me too.
Oh, there we go. But take it a look.
Is it The Lemons?
Yes.
Lemons?
That's
okay,
right.
Growing Lemons.
Growing Lemons where
I know.
you don't think you can.
That's right. Growing Lemons where you don't think you can.
Yeah, and which is a fantastic book because that's one of the big questions we get in our garden centers.
Yes.
These citrus, how do we keep them? How do they come to fruit? So
right.
It is a lot easier than I think we think.
That's right. And because he's from Toronto, so he's in our area and he's written a whole book all about it. So, and he has his own show here. Is he monthly, Gary?
He is monthly.
He's monthly. So, and he's on Reality Radio 101, the Garage Gardener.
Garage Gardener's radio show. Yeah, Garage Gardener.
Yes, perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so he's going to join us next. He's going to call in, though. I couldn't convince him to drive to
he's
Ottawa.
yeah.
I know.
He just got back from vacation, too.
He did, yes, yes. And he forgot to leave the book.
So
he
no
said
issue.
we'll do it a giveaway, and he'll mail it out from Toronto or from downtown. So really looking forward to that show. And of course, August 26th is our September in the Garden show. I don't know where the month is going, but lots is happening in the month, isn't it? I know. It's kind of going fast. So I'm looking forward to keeping. So if you want to follow along with what's going on in my backyard or in my garden, please follow along on Instagram or my website. I released our August in the Garden newsletter that that has a lot of our tips. So you can check that out. So you can sign up for that on my website at downtoearth.ca with the number 2. And again, my links to Facebook and social media and Instagram are there. And our listeners can find you.
Yes, at naturalaffinitydesigns.ca. And all my links to my Instagram and everything is there as well.
Excellent. And our past shows, we both have our past shows on our
On
website.
the website.
But please, we really want you to subscribe and listen to it on, it's much more convenient to listen to it on your phone.
Yes,
I think so. So subscribe, drop us an email or a text, and let us know that you're or post on social media that you're enjoying the show. So we want to thank everybody. We hope you enjoyed all this information about nematodes.
That's it.
That's right.
Thank you, Karen, Larry, Mike, Monica, and Patty for writing in. Thank you, Gary, for producing the show as always.
As always. So thank you, everyone, for joining us down the garden path here on Reality Radio 101.
Thank you for listening to Down the Garden Path with your host, Joanne Shaw, and Matthew Dressing right here on Reality Radio 101.